space.
But Phil, do you agree that when we have these type of conversations,
Yeah.
and you've accepted one possibility is, okay, there could be a creator.
Yeah, I'm not ruling that out, yeah.
I would say that without a creator or a divine, there is no evil, no good. Nothing actually has value. Ultimately, nothing has value.
So what we mean by moral, what do we mean by moral? It's a decision made by a conscious being.
That's your theory.
Okay, but even in your theory, with God, there's a conscious being there saying how does God know what's moral and what's not moral? It's not just
if you were born 500 years ago, Phil, you have to accept that your moral code may have been very different from what it is today.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, right? Where does your moral anchor come from? You're saying it's from God, right?
God, yes,
and how do you know God is good? Because you assert that he's good.
No.
Yes?
No, because Allah
Where do you
says
get that from? Because he tells you.
Yes.
How do you know he's told you?
Fantastic question.
The block universe, as Einstein
But it might not
tells
be the
us.
universe, it might be pre-universe.
Yeah, okay.
So it could be energy, matter,
Yeah,
whatever,
sure.
So what Imran is trying to say...
He's saying that you can't traverse the infinite.
If you go infinitely back, it's quite reasonable and quite logical to say that you don't have a present because you keep going back further and further.
Yeah, but who's going back further and further?
Energy, whatever it might be.
Yeah, but okay. So there are some things that could do that.
That transformation.
Okay. So if you're pure energy, I don't see any reason why you couldn't do that, because to you the passage of time is all the same, right? If you're pure energy, suppose we're just talking about pure energy, photons, gravitational waves, things like that, things that are massless, right? They don't feel the passage of time, so I don't see any problem at all for them to transverse the infinite.
To the degree that we feel it.
They don't feel it full stop. I mean, the only thing you can talk about is a light cone, right, which is a conformal time, but like there's no problem there.
Are those
right?
photons contingent on something else for them to be in existence?
Yeah, this is the whole point.
Well, okay, they don't. Let's put it this way. Let's imagine this. We've been here. Let's say, I don't know,
10 minutes.
10 minutes standing here. Okay, I don't know what it's something like that, right? Okay. Now, if I'm in a spaceship and I fly past, okay, at high speed, the time compresses. Okay. So that 10 minutes becomes a minute, or could become a second. Now, if you're at the speed of light, how much time is elapsing? None, right? You feel all the moments of time at once. There's no problem at all in transversing the infinite. Okay, there's no problem there at all, right? So if you would talk about I agree. Like I would agree that matter particles. Are unlikely to do this, but massless particles, I don't see there's any problem.
So then what you seem to be positing is for there to be an infinite regression that is traversable, that everything has to be massless in the past.
Well, I'm not saying it has to be, but I'm saying it's easily done, I mean, I'm not even sure there's even a problem with mass, now I think about it. I don't necessarily, but let's just, I think massless particles may be, well, I don't think they'd go through the bang, actually. So, okay, now I think about it, they wouldn't go through the transition. Thinking about it, no, it would probably be massless things, right? Things that are space-time, photons, stuff like that. Can't see.
Space-time that's
well, maybe a black hole is only. A black hole is a difficult one because it's kind of made of space-time, right? But it still has a mass, so.
Even
tricky one. No, photons have no rest mass. That's all you need. They have no rest mass. Zero.
Could it be that it's a mass that we can't detect?
No, because theoretically, if it had any kind of rest mass, it cannot travel at the speed of light.
So the problem then?
No.
So the problem then is, because what you're positing in the past is basically just a stream of some sort of massless particle that's moving.
I'm saying that you could have a massless particle transverse an infinite amount of time as we see it, but they wouldn't see it as that. They would see it as all the same, right? There's just space to them. They're just moving through space.
So what I would say is, there wouldn't be a space.
There would.
Why would there be a space?
So if you think in relativity, you have these things called light cones, and you can divide up your movement through space and through time.
What is the universe expanding into?
There's no reason to posit it's expanding into anything.
So
yeah, I mean, it could be, but there's no reason to assume
the reason
that.
I asked the question is because then if you've got these, whatever these mass energy particles are, that are traversing time without feeling time, what are they moving through? Because they would be what the universe is.
Yeah, well, they're moving through space. Yeah.
What space? It couldn't be moving through space because there's no space to move through.
What do you mean there's no space to move
So
through?
that's the same question as what is the universe expanding?
If you go back in time, there could be space there, right? There's no reason to think there's the point where there's no space. I mean, there could be, right? I mean, people propose models, as we've talked about, where there's some state where there's no space, right? But that's not what we're talking about in this case. In this case, there's always space,
Phil,
right? There's never a point where there's no space.
But Phil, do you agree that when we have these type of conversations, and you've accepted one possibility is, okay, there could be a creator.
Yeah, I'm not ruling that out, yeah.
Do you agree that if we take things to the nth degree without any absolute or any, let's say, analytical or empirical evidence, that in reality you could deny anything or the existence of anything?
Well, here's what I think. I think your belief in a proposal should be in proportion to the evidence for it.
I totally agree with you.
Okay, so we're all agreed on that. Okay,
100%.
So if you to deny propositions, if you feel there's no evidence for those propositions, you should deny them. That's your rational obligation.
Yes.
All right? Now, when I say deny, I mean I don't accept the truth of that statement. That's not the same as saying the statement is necessarily false.
Yes.
Right? So if you find, now for me, for God, I don't see any good evidence that there is a God. Yes. And the evidence that I do see points against there being a God. And when the evidence that I see is, one, it takes brains to make minds, and also there's a lot of suffering in the world, so there can't be a perfectly good God. But that's another argument. We can leave that for another day. But so to answer your question, yeah, you can deny anything, but not rationally, right? So I think I'm rational in denying the existence of God because the arguments put forward to make me believe in God are not good arguments. And also, I think I have good arguments against God.
So first of all, I don't. It's just so I don't lose all the threads.
Sure.
So I don't.
We're going a few
I don't think that the infinite regression issue is resolved, because whatever that thing is that's transversing the infinite, however it's transversing it, we need to explain that. Now there isn't one.
Okay. Basically,
So
in some sense, you've got to posit, I think, something that isn't explained by something else, if you like, right? So here, I think with an infinite universe, we're just saying the universe just exists, and there isn't, like, if you like, we could ask the question, what are you made of? And you could say, well, I'm made of molecules. What are the molecules made of? They're made of atoms. What are the atoms made of? Well, they're made of subatomic particles. So what are the subatomic particles made of? Well, we don't know, right? Maybe there are strings. And then suppose there are strings, you could say, well, what are the strings made of? Say they're not made of anything. That's it. We just stop. That's the end that's as far as we can go. We've peeled the onion, there's nothing more. So if there's an infinite universe, you've got to ask the question, well, why did the thing that happened now happen? Well, okay, because of the thing that happened before and before. Okay, I've got this infinite string of events. It goes back forever. Why is that infinite string of events there?
Yes.
Right? That's kind of, I think, what's really the question. And you have to basically say, that's it. That's the end of the explanation. We stop. But you don't solve that problem with God, because I could still say, well, why is God there? And you have to say, well, that's where we stop. Right? So there has to be a stopping point somewhere. Right?
So I'm giving these two choices.
Do you see what I mean?
Sure.
Either the universe had a beginning and there's some spontaneous creation or something like that, or it's always been there, in which case you can still ask the question, well, why is it there? Right? And you could just say it just is.
So what you give me is two options.
Yeah.
One option is this spontaneous creation, and the other option is an intended creation. Something.
I don't know, they're not the only two options, because we've talked about many options, right?
What was the other option?
The universe could have spontaneously created itself. The universe may always exist.
The may always exist. We've been talking about infinite regression.
Yeah.
You said that the infinite regression goes to the stage where ultimately we have to have a singular explanation.
It's not that there's a singular explanation. It's that there's no more explanation you can give to why is this string of events there. They just are there. Some philosophers call this a brute fact. Yeah, it may be that the universe is a brute fact, or it may be that the universe necessarily exists, and maybe it just has to exist.
So isn't
right?
isn't that not the same as saying I don't want to apply my mind anymore to this question?
No, it's no, because we should always be open to furthering the chain of explanation, but we should be open to the possibility that the series of explanations stop somewhere.
Sure.
That there is no further that you can go. We should be open to that, right? And it could be, and of course you have to believe that. You believe in God, right? God is the bottoming out of your explanation, right? So if I ask you why God, right, there's no further that you can really go. There isn't a thing that gave rise to God.
Because
right?
If the reason that there wouldn't be is because you said there has to be an ultimate at some point. Let's use unmoved mover, the classical sort of the uncaused cause. There has to be at some stage an explanation for that string of events that you can't go beyond. Now, what you're saying is we can get to a stage where materially, empirically, we can't assess any further. And this is where the philosophical arguments then take the weight of that further.
I never said empirically we couldn't go further. I mean, I never said that. Who knows what the limit is? So sure, the limit, of course, there are limits to what we can know right now. Who knows where we will go in the future? Right now, I'm interviewing scientists who are trying to look for signals for what happened before the Big Bang. Okay, people 20 years ago thought that was ridiculous, right? Who knows how far we can push things? I don't know, right? But certainly, yeah, of course there are limits now. But my point is...
It's more than the limits now, because what we're talking about pre-universe existence of something.
Yeah.
That goes back an infinite series of events on this string that's infinitely long.
Yeah.
Which we said that, because when we're having, it's difficult, because anything that we have in terms of measuring or assessing, it necessarily has to finish because it's within this universe. Because
it necessarily has to finish.
Our ability to assess has to necessarily finish within.
We can only see a finite number of things. Right. Agree, but that doesn't mean there is only a finite number of things.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that positing this infinite string of events that goes back in time, back in events infinitely on this string that you mentioned.
Yeah.
We're going to lose our ability to assess further. Like you said, there's going to become a stage where we're not going to have explanations. But we still need to. I think it's necessary to have an explanation of where this series of
okay, but so you think the answer is God, right?
So ultimately...
But if I ask you where did God come from, you're going to say he didn't come from anywhere, he just exists necessarily or brute fact, or he's either necessary or brute fact or one of those two.
That's not what I would say.
Okay.
So necessity is probably the better position.
Okay, so why can't the universe be necessary?
Because it's contingent.
No, not if it's
contingent. Why is it contingent? Because we have this string of events.
No, but if there's an infinite number of events, it's not really contingent.
It's contingent on all of those events that precede it.
No, but the whole structure then could be necessary, right? So you're thinking of it. You're thinking of it. No. This isn't the circle, right? That's another one, right? So you could certainly have the case whereby think of it in terms of Einstein's block time. Right, space and time are treated equivalently. Okay, so we really think of time as.
Where was hot chocolate?
Hot chocolates for the brother.
Hot chocolate. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you.
Warm me up a bit.
Yeah. Okay.
What sugar in your hot chocolate?
No, thank you. It's sugary enough, I imagine. Thank you. Cheers.
Yeah, sure.
Where were we?
the thing, Phil, is this, ultimately, we agree that ultimately there comes a point when we run out of explanations.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's reasonable.
So even if you got to finding out what may have happened.
So let's just suppose the universe existed eternally.
T equals zero, right? And if we find something, we say, that looks like that might have, cause the universe, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think we all agree on that there comes a point where there is no answers.
But I mean, it seems to me that
exactly. But the explanation for those events, I think, is still something you can postulate.
I think you can postulate an eternal sequence of events. I don't think there's any logical contradiction with that.
Now, for Muslims, right?
Yeah.
The issue here is this: it's not just based upon this logical or reasonable argument.
Okay.
Because obviously, you might argue that, well, there could have been an infinite number of events. Now, Imran might say, well, that's not logical, and it's not rational, and it's not reasonable because of this reason.
Yeah.
You may disagree with it, regardless of whether it's evidentially backed or not, right? Because it just seems fair to you or right to you, right?
Yeah.
But for Muslims, it's not just about these arguments that, God exists and that makes more sense, so we accept it.
Yeah.
Who's making the claim?
Yeah.
That's important.
Agreed.
And so what Allah says is that we sent down messengers with signs to convince you of the reality of this creator.
Yeah.
So it's not just based upon postulating this infinite regress or where the universe came from. Now, so those miracles obviously were for the people who actually saw those miracles at that time. I didn't see I didn't see Moses split the sea. Right. I didn't see Jesus bringing back somebody from the dead.
But why couldn't Allah do a miracle right here, right now?
So let me just explain that to you, right? And I didn't see the miracles, the physical miracles that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, did. Feeding the many and curing the eyesights and all sorts of other things, right?
Okay.
Those miracles were for those people.
Yeah.
Now, yes, we have what we would argue as valid testimony from multiple chains and sources that actually verify those miracles that they did exist. They saw them.
Yeah.
But of course, as a rational, scientific human being, you could argue, well, hold on a second. Yes, okay, you've got multiple chains and it looks fairly evidentially backed in that sense, but I'm a skeptic or hyper-skeptic, and I still would say, well, it could be this, it could be that, it might have been this, it might have been that, and will erode us
the thing
away.
is, the level of skepticism has to be in proportion to the claim that's being made.
No, I agree.
But there's one of the problems with God
let me just finish, you see. So, for us as Muslims, we are told that this Quran is the miracle. In fact, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, despite doing many other miracles, peace be upon him, emphasized that this is the miracle, the Quran.
Yeah.
And so that's why I would suggest that, rather than just delve in arguments of this infinite regress
before you go there,
okay, go on. We'll come back to that.
You're absolutely right. This is the most valid.
Have I gone too far?
No, you haven't.
Sorry.
So I still think that needs an explanation for the series of past events. There has to be an ultimate explanation, and where our ability to measure and test.
I'll let you go through with this, Phil. I'm going to pray.
No,
right?
Okay, go for it.
Where our ability to test and examine and fails, then the philosophy has to take over. Because there's no other tool that we can use then to assess.
Oh yeah, but it doesn't follow that philosophy can answer that question.
No.
It may well be science and philosophy are unable to answer that question.
So let's. The reason I say philosophy is because it doesn't require measurements as such. You can postulate.
Right. But still, we still need a way to check the statement that you make philosophically is true or false.
So that's the first thing. The second thing, I would say, you mentioned those two things about the problem of evil. And what was the other thing that you mentioned?
Minds look like they come from physical brains.
Sure.
So there's two, I think, very strong reasons to reject the notion that God, as defined as omnipotent, omniscient, created the universe.
We're going to have this discussion about the mind probably at another stage. We spoke about it earlier.
Sure.
So I don't agree at the moment that the mind is rooted in the physicality, which is reducible. So let's leave that to one moment to the one side. Let's look at the problem of the evil, just very briefly, because we can move on to the argument. So in a world in which everything is reducible to matter only, there is no value as such that you can assign. Any values to anything that you assign are arbitrary. And there is no free will. There's no actual consciousness as such.
I don't agree with any of that, but okay.
That's fine. So this is a hard reductionist. Maybe would feel this.
Yeah.
To posit something else beyond that, that there is value and there is moral agency, etc., etc. You have to then posit something beyond just human beings in terms of our experience. That's something that transcends that. So, I would say, without a creator or a divine, there is no evil, no good. Nothing actually has value. Ultimately, nothing has value. It doesn't.
It's opening move in a chess game. Is there one objective, definite answer? And I don't think there is. But that doesn't mean that any move is as good as any other. Anyone that studies game theory knows there are certain bad moves that you are just going to do badly at, right? And this is inherent in the nature of the game, right? It's not inbuilt. The guy that invented chess didn't even necessarily know what the bad moves were, right?
Yeah.
And the people that invent games aren't necessarily the ones who are best at playing them, right? But nevertheless, it just follows from the nature of the game. So I think morality has this relationship to game theory, and there's some interesting experiments that show this. So are you familiar with something called the prisoner's dilemma? Or maybe we should explain it even if you are, because there are people watching. So are you familiar with the prisoner's dilemma? Have you heard of it?
Sounds familiar.
So it's a very core concept in game theory. So game theory, you have this thing, the prisoner's dilemma, and the idea is that you've got two people who are arrested, and they're asked to rat on each other for a reward. Okay? So the idea is, if neither of you rats on each other, then you both walk scot-free.
Right.
If one of you rats and the other one doesn't, you get the reward and you get a very harsh punishment,
Right.
10 years, 20 years in jail, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay? The problem is, so the question is, well, what should you do? And game theorists have looked at this, and one of the problems is it seems to be that you should both rat each other out, right? That creates a dilemma, and that's why it's called the prisoner's dilemma. Now, what's very interesting is that the first time that game theorists looked at the prisoner's dilemma, they looked at a single event, as it were. You've been caught, you're separated, you have to decide whether to rat each other out or not. Then what a game theorist did was they did something called the iterative prisoner's dilemma, where they said, what if we have multiple goes of the game? Then what they did with that was they actually did computer simulations, and they looked to see what strategies worked best. And what they found was very interesting. They found that something called a nice tit for tat was the best strategy. So you start off with a nice move, you be nice to your opponent, you don't rat them out, right? And then you copy what they do next, right? And this strategy seems to work. It seems to be a winning strategy. Now, no one invented that. It wasn't like the guy that thought up the prisoner's dilemma knew about this. It was never invented by anybody. It's just exploring the game, you come to these conclusions that this is the best strategy. And I think morality has some similarity to that, where basically we're all conscious beings and we can all feel happiness and sadness,
I understand that.
and we explore this if you like, phase space of possibilities. And what we do when we try to answer moral questions is we try and come up with sort of winning strategies.
The only drawback to that concept of how morality evolves would be that whatever people decide would be okay. And there are some things that people have decided that have not been okay.
Okay, so what do you mean by is okay?
Is moral.
Right, so, but the question is, so what we mean by moral, what do we mean by moral? It's a decision made by a conscious being.
That's your theory.
Okay, but even in your theory, with God, there's a conscious being there saying how does God know what's moral and what's not moral?
No, but going back to your point,
there's one thing I want to say.
Okay.
Let me adjust this.
See, I don't see how God helps.
Because the way that God helps is because of the inherent characteristics of the Creator, you're all knowledgeable, all wise, etc., which I know you don't agree with, but from our perspective, enables then, therefore, the Creator to give us ways of living in the earth, which would be the best ways of living in this current situation.
Right, so if you assume that God is all good, but why should I assume that?
Sure, no, I'm not saying you do, but I'm saying that's why we can look at things that societies have decided are okay and say, actually, no, these are not okay, and then we have a transcendent basis to say that with. But let me adjust the question because you.
But this is the key question: what justifies this assumption that God is good? Because of course, if you assume God is good. So fine, but if you make a big assumption, you can get big conclusions. So that's easy.
So this is a bit further down the line,
but you've kind of assumed what you wanted to prove.
So what I would say to you is, the only way we would know anything about the Creator, if he exists, is if the Creator told us about him.
But what if he was bad? What if the Creator was a liar? Sure. And he could be, right? He might have a good reason. You think that he's got good reasons to allow us to suffer. Agreed?
No, I haven't said that.
But I think it's implied by your belief system.
It's not. Let me just change the question.
Okay.
So the question, because the last time they asked the question about there being an atheistic universe, you used yourself as a compass to say things were bad or wrong. So now, same question, atheistic universe, but no human beings.
Right.
And I want you to explain, without referring to your own sense of inner morality. It was right that this is because we would say that's actually also.
When you're saying human being, do you mean any conscious being?
Any conscious being.
Okay.
To the level of consciousness that we have.
Yeah. Okay. Well. I think animals are conscious and they can infer some basic concepts of right and wrong.
Can they?
Yeah. Okay. I think there's evidence for that. I'll give you an example. So good experiment, and they've done this with monkeys. It's been done with dogs as well. So what you do is you get 2 monkeys and you give them a reward for some task. You've seen this, right? All right, but let's explain it for the viewers, right? So look this up. It's quite a good video. You should all be able to find this. They give 2 monkeys a reward for a task, and the reward could be a cucumber, which they're okay with eating a cucumber, or...
So I give the explanation.
No, I want to give it. All right, go on, you give it.
So
Fine.
There's 2 monkeys in a cage. They give it, the task is you've got to pick a piece of rock up and drop it through the window.
Yeah.
So they have one monkey who's doing this task, and they give it, every time it does it, they give it a cucumber.
Yeah.
Then they started doing the task with the other monkey, but that monkey gets a strawberry.
No, but you're missing a point. It's a grape. But no,
grape.
You're missing the point. The point is when both are given the cucumber. No, but you have to see them both get the cucumber and they both accept the reward. Right? But it's when one gets a cucumber and the other one gets a grape that the other monkey goes, hang on, the grape's a better reward than a cucumber. And what does he do? He throws the rock back at the experimenter and he starts banging on the table, right? And that shows you that they have some notion of right and wrong. It's very unfairness. It's called inequity aversion, right? Same experiment done with dogs, where what they did was they asked a dog for like a high five with the paw. So what they do is they have 2 dogs, both give them a high five with the paw with no reward, and they're both happy to give the high five. If they both get a reward, both happy to give a high five. But if one gets a reward and the other one doesn't, the one that doesn't refuses. It's like, I'm not playing. You know, so that shows you they have some basic morality. And here's a difficulty for the theist, right? If you think our morality comes from God, why do animals then have this kind of basic but not very well refined sense of morality?
I think that's quite
and humans, yeah, but they also, they don't have the more sort of nuanced versions of morality that we have. Right.
No, I don't know if I would agree, but there are other examples of.
But anyway,
for example, so there are other examples in nature of amoral, what we would say amoral. So sharks are raping their.
Right.
This is just a natural phenomenon. So it's even though I agree that there's a sense that the animals may display this. I would say the source is the same. But let's take anything. So let's take.
But if morality comes from a natural source, then we can explain why sharks. Well, dolphins actually rape sometimes as well. Well, mind you, humans do as well. So I don't know how much we can infer from that.
But as a standard.
Well, in the past, I mean, probably was common.
Is it wrong for a dolphin to rape another dolphin?
That's a very good question. You'd have to ask a dolphin.
and therefore, Phil, is it wrong for a man to rape a woman?
I mean, I think it is, right? And I know because I can infer that using 2 things, my instinct and my reason. I applied the 2, right? My instincts tell me I wouldn't like to be raped, and I see other people who are raped, and I can see that they're in distress. So I use my reason and say, that's bad, right? So I don't need an external God to infuse this in me.
I understand.
But to that point, so the man who rapes that woman and says, well, I don't care what Phil thinks, as far as I'm concerned, I'm a product of a primeval soup. Just matter.
Yeah, but that's the whole point.
No, hold on a second. Sorry. Changing from one form to another.
Yeah.
And then when I'm dead, it's all gone. I'm dust.
Yep.
So what difference does it make? I like her. I think she's very attractive. I have the urge. Now, why are you saying that person is somehow, as a judgment, intrinsically wrong, and your judgment that it's wrong?
Let me ask you a question.
Right?
Let me ask you a question. These events happen all the time, right? People do get raped.
Of course.
And God doesn't stop it, right?
That's not my point.
No, but this is my point.
No.
But this is my point. Let me make my point. Let me make my point, right? God doesn't stop it. The fact that God doesn't stop it would imply that he thinks it's okay. Because if he thought it was okay, he would stop it.
Why would you
so what's your justification? What's your justification for thinking it's wrong?
Right, okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
You have to answer the question I asked you first.
Okay, so to answer your question,
why is he intrinsically wrong?
First off, because we're not just matter, right? We are matter, we're made of matter, but as we said, there are emergent properties that go beyond just matter. We are conscious beings with feelings, right? So that you can infer things from that. So his statement, the character that you kind of created, he's just wrong to say we're just matter, like we only have properties of non-conscious beings. We have these conscious properties that just matter doesn't
These
have.
conscious feelings, are they a product of energy and matter?
Yeah,
Just transforming-
exactly. They are emergent
transforming
properties. They are
from
emergent
one form
properties.
to another.
They are emergent properties, yeah.
But that's what. So my question is.
But that doesn't mean they don't exist.
No, I'm
the
not
fact
saying,
that
I'm not
they're
saying they don't exist.
Okay.
My point to you is, how can you have an anchor so firmly fixed that says that he is wrong for doing what he's doing?
Okay.
And that I am right in my condemnation.
Okay. All right.
of him?
Right. Okay. So here's what I would say. First off, I have to make judgments based off what I feel and think.
Feel and think,
right?
I agree.
There's no escaping that. Now, the problem is, if you want to say it comes from God, I don't see what the justification is for saying this is wrong.
No, but
because you're just. How do you know that rape is wrong?
No, but let's leave God out of it.
But the whole point is we're contrasting. Contrasting two moral ideas of where morality comes from. Morality comes from God idea, and if God tells you rape is right, you have to go along with it.
No.
Yes, you do.
No, Phil.
Right?
My point to you.
That hasn't happened
Phil, my point.
No. But to me, it has.
Phil,
He's told you it's okay to eat meat.
Phil,
I think that's wrong.
Okay, but Phil, hold
so
on.
in that sense,
Let's
it
go back
has
to
happened.
Phil.
He's told you something is right that's wrong.
No, but Phil,
right?
I don't agree with
Now the problem is, how do you know that you? Okay, so how do you know that what God tells you is right? God could be.
Can I just
There's
please,
lots of
Phil,
strings
Phil,
that we need to make.
Okay.
we need to complete the example, which is, I think, and look, with all due respect, from an atheist point of view, the honest answer, I feel, the only honest answer, is that there are no rights or wrongs.
No, that's not.
No, hold on. Even though you may personally feel that certain things are right or wrong, but there can be no absolutes. There can be no firm anchors. There can't be. Because quite frankly, whatever you say is a product of your understanding, your social dynamics, your nurture, your nature, right?
Yep.
And those things can be different for you as they can be different for him or me, right?
Yep.
And so there is nothing that can necessarily say that you are right and I am wrong if I have a complete opposite view about the same moral thing.
Okay, but you cannot escape your own judgment. Even in the theistic system, you have to use your judgment to conclude Islam is true, correct?
Yes,
right?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
So you're basically then saying I have to use my judgment to make a moral decision. You basically say what Islam teaches me is moral.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
So you have to make a judgment that Islam is true.
Yes.
Right? So no moral system can escape making judgments. You're basically saying, you're making your own judgments, so you can't firmly anchor your morality.
No.
But you do too. There's no escaping your judgment.
But Phil, our judgment, we feel, doesn't come from a product of process of matter and energy, independent of the one that created us.
Yeah, but you still have to make a judgment about whether that creator is real, whether he's moral, whether that particular religion is right.
I agree. But our stance is that very judgment, that very foundation, that very anchor comes from the creator. Right. So hold on. So therefore we are able to make this judgment. Now I would argue, even as an atheist, the reason why you believe that rape intrinsically is bad and is wrong, and in fact, surprisingly throughout history, we find that generally, maybe not certain pockets of people here and there, but generally, as far back as we could probably assess, that this was assessed as something that was abhorrent.
But hang on a sec. Slavery was seen as okay till very recently.
Yes.
Right? Till very recently, slavery was seen as okay. Yes. Racism was seen as okay. Most societies were racist. Right? It's a fact. Slavery was common in the world.
Okay.
Right? And also look at the levels of violence. If you can anthropologists have studied this.
Is slavery intrinsically morally wrong?
I think slavery is wrong. I don't know what you mean by intrinsically.
As an absolute.
Again, I don't know what you mean by absolute. These terms.
As a certainty.
Okay, I make my judgment. I say it's wrong. That's all I can say.
So what was immoral about those people who did commit slavery on others? What was
what is moral from the theistic perspective? Because God allowed it.
No.
Yes, he did. It happened, and he didn't do anything about it.
Look, Phil. Now this is the thing, right? For us, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that the one who traps a free man, sells him and consumes the profit, I and Allah will be at war with him on the day of judgment.
Right, but a free man, you have to define what counts as a free man.
Of course.
And you can say, well, that's not a free man, it doesn't count.
But it's not left there.
Everything is open to interpretation. You want to claim all these things are absolute, but they're not.
No, but Phil,
they're all open to interpretation.
When it says free man, it's not just left there. It does explain what a free man is. That's my point.
Okay.
So for me, slavery is intrinsically capturing a free man and consuming the profit. For me, is haram, it's forbidden. For me, rape is an absolute. It's haram, it's forbidden. In fact, you get the death penalty if you get convicted of rape, right? Now, you might argue, or some liberals may argue, well, the death penalty, or that's immoral, that's unjust as well.
I do think it is immoral.
Right, okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
But the issue is, you see, that you have to accept, as an atheist, that there is no firm anchor when it comes to morality, and it's purely.
So let me ask you.
Phil, and it's purely a function of nurture, nature. Because if you were born,
it's not just
if you were born 500 years ago, Phil, you have to accept that your moral code may have been very different from what it is today.
Okay. So let me ask you a question, right? Where does your moral anchor come from? You're saying it's from
Allah,
God, right?
God, yes,
and how do you know God is good? Because you assert that He's good.
No.
Yes.
No, because Allah
Where do you
says
get that from? Because He tells you.
Yes.
How do you know He's told you?
Fantastic question.
You have to make a judgment.
Fantastic
So you
question.
cannot escape your own judgment.
That's a fantastic
right?
question.
So you want to say that my morality is based on my own judgment, it's subjective,
Yes.
I can't anchor it.
Yes.
You cannot escape your own judgment either, because you have to conclude that this religion is right, that God exists, that He's all good, right? And you have to judge that.
Yes.
So you cannot escape that judgment. I don't see any reason to think that God is good. Even if there is an intelligent creator of the universe, there's no reason at all to think that He's perfectly good. In fact, what we know from our experience is power tends to corrupt. So if there's some all-powerful being, He may be all corrupt.
Well, then you're making you
right?
That's just a slave.
No, that's what we know from our experience. We do see that more and more. Yeah. Okay. So of course we have to go with our experience. Now, of course, it's always possible that is different from our experience. It's conceivable. Absolutely. I'm not saying that, right? But I'm saying we cannot infer, even if you buy into some argument that there's an intelligent creator of the universe, that they are good. You just have to take that as an assumption. And of course, if you start with the assumption that God is good, of course you'll get the conclusion that what He says is good. But I think that's circular argument.
Our basic premise that this is all a test. That is the basic premise.
You're right, but you're way ahead of the we have to.
Okay. All right. 5 minutes. 5 more minutes, and then I've got to go.
But I just want to try and
go for it. 5 more minutes, and I've got to go.
So the point of the question was, if you remove our judgment from the scenario, and you see that the wolves in this scenario were going into the tar pit and they were dying, without there being any creator, without there being any moral agency to judge the scenario like ourselves, then there's no way to look at that without that judgment. So the idea of evil or good is a judgment that we make. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So we both agree with you. No?
Yeah.
Okay. In an atheistic world where there is ultimately no value or consequence, then this is just the rearrangement of atoms.
No, it's not just a rearrangement of atoms, because conscious beings experience things that matter to them.
Sure.
So to say it's just it is a rearrangement of atoms, but it's not just a rearrangement of atoms. There's a particular state that those atoms are in that has moral worth. But this
is the point. So without there being some assertion of moral worth on something, there is no moral worth. So if the universe is one chain of a series of events without any intelligent purpose behind it, then everything is essentially arbitrarily given value by ourselves.
It's not just arbitrary. But that's like saying the opening, which is that's like saying.
There's so many topics.
But hang on. I just want to respond to this point. That's like saying which is the best opening move of chess is arbitrary. Well, it's true that there's no definite best opening move of chess, but it's not arbitrary. There are certain moves of chess that will lead to bad outcomes. You can get checkmated in one move.
Phil, can I just one very quick one, Phil? So if 500 years ago
Yeah.
you felt that slavery was good and you practiced slavery,
Yeah.
and being born 500 years ago, you may well have thought that, right?
Yeah, right.
Do you accept
True,
that?
yeah.
Would
yeah.
that have been immoral?
In my judgment, yes. In the judgment of me 500 years ago, I probably would have said no. But you're left with the same problem. Because if God told you slavery was okay,
Yes.
would it be okay?
Yes, of course, if God said, but he didn't.
Right.
That's not the point.
But hang on, right? So anything God tells you is okay.
Absolutely.
Right? So if he told you to kill all the people here in the park.
But he doesn't, though. That's the point.
But some people say that he does.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, but some people say he does. How do you know?
But when people say that, that doesn't make that you can't attribute that to
How
God.
do you know?
can
No, but now you're making a judgment.
Of course.
Right?
Of
See,
course.
that's my whole point. You can't escape
Let-
your
let-
own
let me- let me
judgment.
explain
You're
something to you.
trying to say,
Phil.
if I go with this theistic
Phil,
system,
Phil.
I can escape my judgment and get a firm anchor, but you can't.
Let me explain something to you. Okay, let me explain something to you, right? 500 years ago, you may
Yeah.
have accepted slavery to be correct and practiced
Right.
it, yes?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have still. You know why?
Well, really?
Yes.
When did
Hold on,
slavery
hold on.
get abolished in Saudi
Look,
Arabia? What year?
We can talk about that if you want to.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Islam, the Quran.
Saudi Arabia is an Islamic country,
I'm talking
right?
about Islam and the Quran.
Okay. What year does slavery abolish in Saudi Arabia? It's not irrelevant.
I'll tell you why it's not relevant.
Yeah.
Because even if it was not abolished today,
Yeah.
doesn't mean God said that that's what you should do.
Okay,
That's why it's
but
irrelevant.
what God says is open to human interpretation.
Okay, so my point
Agreed?
to you, Phil, my point
You
to
can't,
you,
you don't just hear what he
Phil,
says, you have to
Phil,
interpret.
so my point to you is that
Yeah.
for me,
Okay,
even if I felt rape was okay 1,000 years ago,
yeah.
it would still be haram and it would still be forbidden because God made it haram, made it forbidden.
But that's your judgment that he did that.
Exactly.
But your judgment could be wrong.
Absolutely. So what do I base?
So you're not in any different position than me.
Okay, so my judgment could be wrong.
Right.
Okay, that's a valid point.
Yeah.
However, there are certain things within, let's say, our judgment
Yeah.
that we can use in order to assert whether something is from God or is not from God.
Right.
And that's the question.
Yeah.
So the
exactly.
question is, who is making the claim that rape is wrong?
Yeah.
You see, you're saying I'm making that claim myself personally, but you're on dodgy ground because there is no anchor unless you bring something that is
okay.
transcendent, that transcends
Okay.
our sense of right
Okay.
or wrong, right? Because you've agreed that 500 years ago you may have thought slavery was perfectly okay.
I might
Or
have.
possibly
Right,
rape,
okay.
or if you were a tribe in South America, you may have thought it was perfectly moral to go and conquer that tribe, kill all their men,
Okay.
rape their women.
And if God
right?
told you to do that, you would think it was moral.
No, but the God doesn't. That's the point.
No. You say he doesn't. That's your judgment.
Yes, of
okay.
course.
Now let's take an example. There's a passage in the Quran
Yes.
that says kill all the polytheists. Now I
Yes,
know what
I
you're
believe
going to say.
it is, yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right. Now I know what you're going to say. You're going to say it doesn't mean everyone kill all the polytheists. That was specific to the thing where they were threatening us. Right? You have to read that passage and interpret it.
No, you don't.
Yes, you do. Because other people
No, you don't.
interpret it and say, yeah,
No, you're
that's
not.
to be. Yes, you do. You can't escape
Phil,
that.
Phil.
Now, I'm not saying your interpretation is wrong.
Phil, you've raised a
but
point.
you cannot
Okay,
escape
Phil,
your own
you've
judgment.
raised a point.
So you have not got a firmer anchor than I have.
You've raised a point. It's a good point, actually, because we do hear this quite a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
Now,
We're kind of out of time. Sum up.
You would agree.
Sum up, because
You
I'm
would
running out of time.
agree.
Yeah.
Context, what it's referring to, who it's referring to, when it's referring to is
Yeah.
crucially important.
Of
right?
course it is.
You
I don't.
accept that,
I
you?
don't
Okay.
deny that.
So if I say to you, Phil came into the pub,
Yeah.
Abbas raised his gun and he shot Phil and he killed him. What would you say just happened there?
Looks like a murder.
Murder, right?
Right. Yeah.
If the context was Phil had a gun in his pocket, came to shoot Abbas, as he reached for his gun and pointed it, Phil came through the door, Abbas saw what happened and he shot Phil and he killed him. What have I just done now?
Self-defense.
Self-defense.
But-
Hold on.
Yeah.
Same event.
Yeah.
If you miss out all of the...
Well, we agreed on that. Of course we
If you
agreed
miss
on
out
that.
all the context, it looks like murder.
Right.
If you look at the complete context, what it's talking about, who it's talking about...
Agreed. But
not.
you have to look at that context and assess. Was it self-defense? Wasn't it? Here's an example, right? So there have been cases where a robber has come into a house,
Right.
and they've been shot,
Yes.
right? And you have to say, well, hang on, was the robber armed?
Yes.
Were they really posing a threat?
Yes.
You have to assess that. You have to
course.
judge it.
Right.
And the whole point is, you cannot escape the use of your own judgment. So this claim that there's one system of morality that's absolute and objective and independent of human mind, and there's another one that's all dependent on human mind and is subjective and can't be anchored, this is a false dichotomy.
No, it's not.
And I have to leave it there. If you want to sum up, I have to leave it there. Let's one last point each, three of us, okay? And then we go.
I'll try this. There's so many threads.
Who wants to go? Yeah, okay.
I'll try.
Okay.
So, I think the idea that there is no personal judgment involved in making a moral decision is false. I agree with you on that context.
Right.
The problem here is they're saying that you have no reason to invalidate someone else's personal judgment on what is moral because you have no transcendent anchor beyond yourself. Because that person, his claim is as valid as your claim, and there's no way you can deny that his claim is valid. What we're saying is that we have the ability to refer our choice to something that we've determined to be the creator. I agree, it's our decision and our consciousness beyond that who gives us our moral anchor. And this is where theism gives us this absolute morality, which is slightly different. So that's one thing. But the other point really was that in a world in which there is no creator, universe, and then actually you actually can't make the claim that things are evil or bad. The only way you can posit even the notion of evilness or goodness within a universe is to refer to as something beyond, transcendent. And this is where I don't think the argument from evil works. Now, there's lots of explanations for the existence of the evil. I mean, the most common one is just look at the time frame of existence. For example,
well, let's not open that can of worms because let's just stick to what we're talking about.
There are lots of what I would say are valid arguments against this idea of God being somehow allowing evil, and I wouldn't think what happens. But lots of things are open. Well, I say great conversation. We'll have a conversation again. We'll talk more on consciousness next time we meet.
All right, it's been good. All right, thanks very much.
Phil, you want to sum up?
Okay, yeah, all right. My sum up is that morality is a difficult question. Positing God doesn't help the question because you have to assume that God is good to infer what's good, and therefore you've just got a circular argument. Moreover, even if I agree that I need God for good and evil, I could still get an internal contradiction, because if I go say, okay, let's say I believe in God, therefore I can now say what is good and evil, but now I see that God allows or even causes evil, now I have a contradiction. So even if I go with you on that, which I won't, but even if I did, I still face myself a contradiction. So you just can't get out of the problem so easily.
But can you have evil without?
Yeah, go on, sum up.
Okay, so Phil, the issue here is this, yes? You're quite right that we have to use our judgment. Summing up.
Yeah. That's fine.
We're going to sum up in a minute.
Okay, sorry.
We are summing up. This is the last sum up, and then I'm off.
So you're quite right, we have to use our judgment.
Yeah.
What is judgment? Judgment is what you find reasonable or fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, an atheist has to accept that his yardstick, his anchor, is it's relative, right? It's fluid. There is no certainty when it comes to these matters. You have to accept that. Now, to argue, but then if you believe in God and then you're having the same problem, that's not the issue. The issue is, at the very least, you have to accept that within an atheistic framework, there is no certainty and there is no absolute when it comes to morality, right? Now, for the theist, we argue that morality, that innate feeling, predisposition to recognize things to be bad or wrong, the fitra, we believe that innate quality is placed by God, even in your heart, and that is why I think it answers this concept that you, despite perhaps not accepting the existence of a creator, can recognize bad from good. That we believe is the innate creation of God, the fitra, the conscience within our hearts. So that's why when you find even an evil man or an evil woman, when they conduct an evil act willingly, they know in their hearts.
But that's just wrong. Psychopaths have been studied very extensively, and they don't know it's wrong. So that just seems wrong.
Well, first, that's an exception.
No, but
that's a brain disorder. That's a mental state.
No, but why didn't God put it in them? Okay, sorry.
You're not allowed to interject.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go on. I'm sorry.
So, and I believe that. So this moral issue really, unless Imran, as Imran has put it, it transcends our capacity, capability, assessment, which is very fickle, very weak, right? What you might feel today, Phil, may well change in 20 years' time, right? And you may feel, actually, you know what, I thought that was pretty bad. I think it's okay now. I thought that was okay. I think that's really bad now, right? But unless you transcend to something outside our very sort of, fickle, weak, easily transformed sense of reality, morality, whatever, I don't think you can have that firm anchor. And that firm anchor for us is what Allah has innately put into our hearts, which is the fitrah, the conscience.
Okay.
And then secondly, the evidence that's been provided, which we could perhaps discuss
Another time.
next time,
All
in terms of recognizing God. Yeah?
It's been great. It's been great. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Really, really nice.
Nice to meet you.
All right.
Nice to
Do
talk
you want to take your microphone back?
Thank you very much. Take care. We'll
All
see
right.
you soon.
Thanks a lot.
No
All
problem.
right. Have a nice day.
It'd be a good-
Because you guys, we have a good discussion.
Maybe you can arrange a
Not
topic.
shouting.
So you might pick a topic, we might pick a topic.
No, I wasn't pointing to you. I meant the car. I wasn't. I didn't mean you.
Not shouting.
I didn't mean you. I meant generally in the plot.
yeah.
Okay. So you have my email?
Yeah.
So just email me. We're going to be there this week, and I may or may not be able to come, but
We can discuss a topic maybe.
yeah, we can pick a
Do
topic
bit
and
of
we stick to
research,
it.
whatever. and
Okay.
then,
All right.
yeah.
Cool.
Nice
Phil?
discussion.
All right.
Thanks a lot, man.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Okay.
Coming around with that. Oh, God, you do think.
So just briefly to sum up sort of the discussion, so quite a long topic. So we started off talking about the existence of the universe, and Phil posited a couple of ideas about the universe always existing, or existing in an eternal form, either in a circular series of events or an infinite regressive series of events. We talked about the possibility that this, and ultimately he agreed, if I'm not sort of misrepresenting him, that we need an ultimate explanation of this chain of events that would be occurring, and we were sort of disagreeing about the nature of this. Then the conversation moved on to sort of morality, and that became quite a wide discussion, and the problem of evil, which became quite a wide discussion. And the points really were that Phil thought that all moral judgments made by human beings are from themselves, and we argued about the validity of anyone's morality if they disagreed with you. From that basis, an atheistic basis, you wouldn't be able to say somebody who had a different idea of what is moral is wrong, because you would have to agree that their subjectivity is as valid as your subjectivity. So we put forward the theistic position or the Islamic position in that because we have God as a moral anchor, that our judgments on what is moral and what is not moral then reside in the Creator, and He's the one who tells us about how to live in the world. And we didn't get into any further, we weren't able to come to a conclusion for this, but really it's an interesting discussion, and it shows you that actually we can quite rationally hold our ideas as theists and explain why we require for there to be value in the universe, we require the existence of a Creator, and how good and evil itself, if it exists, has to require the existence of the Creator. Assalamu alaikum, brothers.